Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great show and you're going to love it. First, what did Bryan Kohberger say when he called his dad in the early morning hours of November 13th? The Menendez Brothers resentenced amid new evidence and rehabilitation. Lori Vallow faces a second Arizona trial for attempted murder and conspiracy. Cassie Ventura delivers some harrowing testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' trial. Former Colleton County Clerk Becky Hill surrenders on a felony charge. That's right, from the Alec Murdaugh case. We have this day in legal history, a new area today, the quote of the day, the legal quote of the day, and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, hit that bell for notifications, and yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, before we get to the docket, we also have to remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription today. You'll be able to do as many searches as you desire as long as you have that subscription, which you can cancel at any time. But when you search somebody's name, a report is literally generated while you wait, and it's going to provide you information, for example, as to their cell phone numbers, their email addresses, their social media presence. You're going to find out if they're married, divorced, do they have liens, judgment, a criminal history? Are they on one of those registration lists that they have to be on? Yeah, things that maybe they're not telling you, ladies and gentlemen. Go to crimetalksearch.com. Check out anybody new that is coming in your life, or whether you are just a true crime detective and want to search as much information as you can about somebody involved in a high-profile case. Well, you can do it. crimetalksearch.com. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. And first on the docket, that's right, Bryan Kohberger. What did he tell his dad when he called him in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, after he allegedly committed a quadruple homicide? That's right. New revelations have emerged in the case of Bryan Kohberger, obviously the criminology PhD student accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students back on November 13th of 2022. Well, court records indicate that Kohberger made 3 phone calls to his father, Michael Kohberger, starting at 6:17 a.m., just 2 hours after the alleged murders, which occurred shortly after 4 a.m. Now, the calls, lasting up to 54 minutes, were placed from Kohberger's phone near his apartment in Pullman, Washington, though the content of these conversations obviously remains unknown up to this point. Now, it's unclear whether such early morning calls were typical, as Kohberger's parents obviously resided in Pennsylvania, Albright, Pennsylvania to be exact, where the first call would have been received about local time, about 9 a.m. Now, prosecutors allege that Kohberger disabled his phone and then put it on airplane mode during the time of the murders to avoid detection. Surveillance footage captures a white Hyundai Elantra, believed to be Kohberger's, circling the victim's home at 1122 King Road. They're in Moscow, Idaho, not Moscow, Idaho, as I've been informed, before the attack. Then at 9:12 a.m., Kohberger's phone pings on a cell tower near the crime scene, suggesting that he returned to the alleged crime scene. And by 10:31 a.m., he was back at his apartment, where he took some disturbing selfies, smiling with his thumbs-up gesture in front of the shower. The victims' bodies were discovered just before noon when a 911 call was made. Now, as you may recall, Kohberger was arrested on December 30th of 2022 at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, where he had traveled for the holidays. His father had joined him in Pullman, Washington earlier that month for the cross-country drive, during which their white Hyundai Elantra was stopped twice by police. Prosecutors do plan to call Kohberger's family members, possibly Father Michael, Mother Marianne, and sisters Amanda and Melissa as witnesses in the capital murder trial set to begin on August 11th there in Ada County. Now, the specifics of their testimony remain confidential, though Kohberger's defense team say that his family supports him and they're unwilling to aid in their son's prosecution. In a notable ruling, though, the Judge Hippler, permitted Kohberger's immediate family members to attend the trial daily, even before they are called to testify. Now, further details reveal Kohberger's activities. You can take them for what it's worth. On August 16th of 2022, he allegedly searched for Ted Bundy and a professor's paper on the serial killer. Post-murder, he watched shows about Bundy, including a YouTube video, Ted Bundy, Essence of a Psychopath, on December 28th, 2022, and took selfies mimicking Bundy's hooded appearance. Kohberger also listened to Britney Spears' songs Criminal and searched for news about the murders and his own name. His phone contained numerous images of female students from Washington State University and the University of Idaho. And these were all sourced from social media accounts linked to victims, Kaylee Gonsalve and Madison Mogen and Zana Kernodle. Investigators believe Mogen was the primary target, as the killer allegedly went directly to her third-floor room, where Gonsalves was also present. A struggle alerted Kernodle, who was downstairs, leading to her and Ethan Chapin's death. The killer reportedly sat in a chair in Kernodle's room before exiting via a sliding door, passing survivor Dylan Mortensen's room. And Mortensen's described seeing a masked figure with bushy eyebrows. She and Bethany Funk, another survivor, hid and later discovered the bodies. A sixth roommate who had moved out of the home but was coming back, obviously had some last-minute changes to her schedule and potentially escaped a horrible fate. Now, evidence tying Kohberger to the crime scene includes the DNA on the K-bar knife sheath found next to Mogen's body, matching his profile, and his Amazon purchases for a similar knife and sheath back in March of 2022. His Hyundai Elantra matches the vehicle seen fleeing the scene, and cell phone data suggests he stalked the house at least 12 times before the murders. Now, the murder weapon remains missing, though Kohberger allegedly searched for a replacement knife post-crime. As the trial approaches, these details continue to obviously shed a little more light on the tragic events of November 13th of 2022. And remember, Bryan Kohberger is given the presumption of innocence because he has not pled guilty, nor has he been convicted of a jury of his peers. So we'll give him that. Next on the docket, the Menendez brothers resentenced amid new evidence and signs of rehabilitation. So yesterday afternoon, Lyle and Eric Menendez, convicted in 1996 for the 1989 murder for their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, were resentenced in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Now, the brothers, aged 18 and 21 at the time of the crime, finally admitted full responsibility for their killings, citing years of alleged abuse by their father and neglected by their mother. Now, Judge Michael Jessic, against state recommendations, reduced the sentence from life without parole to 50 years to life, making them immediately eligible for parole under California's youthful offender law, as they were under 26 when they committed their crimes. Now, the factors leading to resentencing, well, the resentencing hearing was prompted by several developments. One, new evidence. In 2023, the brothers filed a motion presenting new evidence, including a letter Eric wrote to a cousin before the murders detailing alleged abuse, and a sworn statement from Roy Rosello, a former Menudo member, alleging abuse by Jose Menendez. The evidence supported their defense, which was largely excluded at their second trial. And then, of course, the evolving legal perspectives. That's right. The former district attorney, George Gascon, in 2024 recommended resentencing, citing modern trauma, informed understandings that would likely have altered the case's outcome, and he emphasizes the brothers' rehabilitation efforts. And then don't forget the cause celeb. That's right. The Netflix series, Lyle and Eric Menendez story, and the documentary, The Menendez Brothers, reignited some public interest, highlighting the brothers' abuse claims and prison conduct pressuring legal reconsideration. Then on April 11th, 2025, a Los Angeles judge allowed the resentencing effort to proceed, citing new evidence and rehabilitation. Judge Jessic's rulings followed the brothers' courtroom admissions of guilt, and The incoming district attorney, Nathan Hochman, opposed resentencing, arguing the brothers had not fully accepted responsibility and questioned their abuse claims. Now, despite this, the judge proceeded, noting the brothers' prison's conduct and letters from prison staff praising their behavior. Since their convictions, Lyle and Eric's incarceration at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility have engaged in rehabilitation efforts. For example, Eric earned a college degree, and Lyle completed coursework demonstrating personal growth. They founded inmate support groups, including Eric's hospice volunteer program and sexual abuse survivor groups, and Lyle's addiction recovery and mentoring initiatives. Eric wrote a book on prison reform, while Lyle advocated for better prison conditions. Their efforts aim to improve inmates' lives. And they also had prison employees providing rare letters of support, highlighting the brothers' positive influence. However, a risk assessment noted allegations of misconduct, including possession of illicit cell phones, dealing drugs, and filing fraudulent tax returns, which could impact their parole considerations. Now, for those who don't know, back in August of 1989, the brothers killed their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion. Prosecutors argued the motive was greed, as the brothers stood to inherit $14 million, evidenced by their $700,000 spending spree right after the murders. The brothers claimed self-defense due to prolonged abuse. Their first trial ended in a hung jury, but the second trial, which excluded abuse evidence, led to life sentences without the possibility of parole. The case's high profile and recent media attention has obviously kept the case in the public eye. So what's going to happen next? Well, the state parole board will now decide whether to release Lyle and Eric. The judge emphasized that while he believes they have earned a parole opportunity after 35 years, the final decision will rest with the parole board. The resentencing marks a significant development in that case, obviously, and it continues to draw lots and lots of attention. Speaking of other high-profile cases, how about Lori Vallow? That's right, she's facing her second Arizona trial for attempted murder and conspiracy. This woman's going to have more trial experience than some attorneys I know. That's right. So Lori Vallow, known for killing her 2 kids and husband number 5's wife, is preparing for her second trial in Arizona, scheduled to begin in June of this year. The trial this time around centers on charges of conspiracy to commit attempted murder back in 2019, which was a shooting incident targeting Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of Vallow's niece, Melanie Pulaski. Now, this case follows her recent conviction in April of 2025 for conspiring to murder her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, and her ongoing life sentence in Idaho for the murders of her 2 youngest children, Tylee Ryan and Joshua J.J. Vallow, as well as husband number 5's first wife, Tammy Daybell. So it is alleged that Vallow had become a polarizing figure due to her apocalyptic religious beliefs and the series of deaths linked to her 5th husband. Anyway, the upcoming trial stems from an October 2019 incident in Gilbert, Arizona, where Boudreaux reportedly being shot at from a Jeep while driving. Prosecutors allege that Vallow, along with her late brother Alex Cox, orchestrated the attack as part of a broader pattern of eliminating perceived obstacles to her financial and romantic goals. Now, her brother, Alex Cox, who died of natural causes in December of 2019, was also implicated in the Charles Vallow killing, which Vallow claimed was self-defense. Obviously, the jury rejected the self-defense claims, and she was convicted. Now, the Maricopa County District Attorney is pursuing the case despite Vallow's existing life sentences. The district attorney has emphasized the importance of accountability, stating justice for all victims in this case remains priority, regardless of prior convictions. The prosecution is expected to argue that Vallow's motives included financial gain and her desire to protect her religious ideology, which labeled certain individuals as zombies or evil spirits. Now, Vallow's April 2025 trial for the Charles Vallow conspiracy ended in a guilty verdict after a week-long proceeding there in Maricopa County as well. She represented herself, and she argued that the shooting was a family tragedy and not a premeditated act. However, jurors found her text messages, including references to Charles Vallow as Ned and discussions about life insurance policies, to be somewhat damning evidence following the verdict. Now, Vallow filed a motion for a new trial on May 5th of 2025, citing juror misconduct and prosecutorial errors. She claimed a juror's knowledge of her Idaho conviction biased the verdict, and the prosecutor misrepresented evidence throughout the trial. Now, the court has yet to rule on that motion, but it'll be denied. Trust me. Anyway, the upcoming Boudreaux trial is expected to face similar challenges, with Vallow likely to represent herself again. Her self-defense claims and allegations of judicial impartiality may resurface, potentially complicating the proceedings. The second trial is set to commence mid-June, with jury selection expected to begin shortly after Memorial Day. The prosecutor is going to rely upon circumstantial evidence, including phone records, text messages, and witness testimonies from family members, as well as law enforcement. Now, Boudreaux, who survived the shooting incident, is expected to testify about the incident and his connection to Vallow's family dynamics. The defense may attempt to shift the blame to Alex Cox or argue insufficient evidence linking Vallow directly to the conspiracy. Now, we will be bringing you the trial. Unfortunately, the court has put a 30-minute delay on the streaming, but we intend to bring you gavel-to-gavel coverage of whatever the court allows us to stream to you. So make sure you come to Crime Talk for the latest Lori Vallow trial. And next, Cassie Ventura delivers some harrowing testimony in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial. So today, Cassie Ventura, or Cassandra Cassie Ventura, the former girlfriend of Sean P. Diddy Do It Combs, continued her testimony for a second day in a Manhattan federal courtroom, detailing allegations of abuse, coercion, and forced participation in prolonged sexual encounters during their decade-long relationship. Now, the singer, who is expecting her third child, described a controlling and violent dynamic with Combs, central to his ongoing sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Now, Ventura recounted being coerced into freak-offs, drug-fueled sexual marathons lasting up to 4 days, allegedly orchestrated by Sean Combs. She testified that Combs directed her interactions with male sex workers, specifying details such as the use of copious baby oil to maintain a glistening appearance. These encounters, she said, left her with physical injuries, including frequent urinary tract infections, gastrointestinal issues, and sores from grueling sessions. Ventura also revealed an opioid addiction developed to cope with the trauma, stating, "Opioids made me feel numb. It was an escape for me." Now, the jury viewed evidence, including some still images from freak-off videos shown under seal to protect privacy, and jurors apparently displayed some physical shock, with one black male juror raising his eyebrows, a black female juror swallowing hard and shaking her head, a white male juror placing his hand near his mouth, and another white male juror appearing to do a double take. Now, Ventura remained composed while describing the images, which included escorts she recruited at Combs' behest in cities like Las Vegas, Miami, and Los Angeles. And then Ventura detailed violent incidents, including a 2011 assault after Combs discovered her romance with Kid Cudi, resulting in bruises documented by her mother. Then there was the 2016 Los Angeles hotel assault captured on surveillance footage shown in court, and that clearly depicts Combs hitting and kicking her. She testified that fighting back escalated his violence, leading her to comply out of sheer fear. Additionally, Combs allegedly threatened to release freak-off recordings, which Ventura feared would ruin her career and reputation. The prosecution presented text exchanges, including one where Ventura compared Combs to Ike Turner and another where she pleaded for him to delete compromising videos. Combs' defense has acknowledged some domestic violence, but denies sexual trafficking and racketeering charges, arguing the government is targeting his sexual preferences. Now, the trial, presided over by U.S. District Court Judge Aaron Sumerian, includes testimony of other witnesses of graphic evidence, with Combs' family, including his mother and sons, present in court. Now, Ventura's husband, Alex Fine, was permitted in the courtroom for most of her testimony, but will be excluded for specific segments due to potential relevance as a witness. Told you the other day, ladies and gentlemen, things are going to get freaky in the Sean Combs trial, and I think people are going to be appalled as to what takes place. Next on the docket, the former Colleton County clerk, Becky Hill, surrenders on felony charges. That's right. Today, Becky Hill, the former Colleton County clerk of court, in the Alec Murdaugh trial, surrendered to authorities at the Colleton County Detention Center there in Walterboro, South Carolina at 7:30 this morning. Hill was booked on 3 felony charges, marking a significant development in her ongoing legal scrutiny surrounding her conduct during the high-profile trial of Alec Murdaugh, where he was convicted of double murder back in 2023. Now, according to the jail records and multiple reports, Hill faces 2 counts of misconduct in office and 1 count of obstruction of justice. Additionally, she's been charged with 1 count of perjury in Richard County, where she was transported later today for a further arraignment. The charges stem from allegations of improper conduct, including jury tampering during the Murdaugh trial and using her official position for financial gain, as noted in a South Carolina State Ethics Commission opinion in 2024. Now, Hill surrendered following her arraignment before the magistrate there set bond at $10,000, specifically a personal recognizance bond. Now, the specific detail of the charges remains partially undisclosed, but sources indicate they relate to her actions as clerk, which have been under investigation by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Now, Hill resigned from her position in 2024 amid mounting allegations that she managed the Alec Murdaugh trial, where Alec Murdaugh was convicted of murdering his wife and son. Her conduct, particularly accusations of jury tampering, has been cited as a potential basis in the Murdaugh appeal. Now, Murdaugh attorneys Dick Harpatulian and Jim Griffin issued a statement noting that while these charges are serious, they are not surprising given their prior concerns about Hill's actions. Now, following her processing there at the Colleton County jail, SLED agents transported her to another county for the perjury charge, and she was detained at that detention center. The perjury charge is believed to be in connections with her broader legal troubles. Those specifics have not been disclosed. Now, the arrest has obviously drawn significant attention due to Hill's role in the one of South Carolina's most publicized legal cases, and misconduct in office and obstruction of justice are considered common law crimes in South Carolina, each carrying a potential sentence of up to 10 years in prison. The perjury charge adds further complexity to Miss Hill's legal battles. And I've always said the Alec Murdaugh case will probably come back on 2 grounds. 1, the clerk's alleged jury tampering, and 2, all the 404B evidence related to the financial crimes totally overwhelmed the trial. And if Alec Murdaugh does get a new trial, it will be because of those issues. And listen, there was plenty of evidence to convict Alec Murdaugh in that particular case. This clerk didn't have to allegedly try and help the prosecution in any way. And frankly, if Alec Murdaugh does get a new trial because of her conduct, she should have to foot the bill for the new trial. But that's just my opinion. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. On May 14th, 1787, delegates from each state begin to arrive in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. The last delegates arrived 10 days later on May 24th. On this date in 1933, the Dillinger robbery investigation. That's right. The Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was tracking John Dillinger after a series of bank robberies, and his crimes prompted the 1934 Crimes Bill, granting the FBI broader power to combat interstate crime. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, federal courts, you have to have interstate commerce, interstate nexus to get to federal court. Crime was committed just in the state jurisdiction, across the state line. But how do they usually get their jurisdiction? Well, if it goes through the mail, if you use a computer, right? You commit a crime here on your computer, or you transfer money on your computer, something along those lines. That computer goes to a server in Virginia, and guess what? It's now been involved in interstate commerce. Now the feds get jurisdiction. On this date, in 1942, the United States government was enforcing Executive Order 9066, relocating Japanese Americans to internment camps. Obviously, legal challenges like Korematsu versus United States later exposed constitutional violations. On May 14th, 1954, final arguments were presented in Brown v. Board of Education before the United States Supreme Court and their May 17th ruling. The decision ultimately declared school segregation unconstitutional. And on this date in 1986, Congress debated the Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act, which passed later that year. It funded anti-drug programs and increased penalties for drug-related crimes near schools. Don't commit crimes regarding drugs and guns near schools, ladies and gentlemen. The sentencing enhancements go up considerably. And certainly don't use it with a gun that was involved in interstate commerce, because then you got some real problems. And on this date, on May 14th, 2013, Doksar Severian was facing federal charges for the April 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. Needless to say, his case strengthened anti-terrorism laws as well as raised issues regarding the death penalty. And a new segment for Crime Talk, the quote of the day. This one, sin nowadays has been made not only ugly, but passé. People are no longer sinful. They are only immature or underprivileged or frightened or more peculiarly sick. The quote is from C.S. Lewis, specifically from his works, Letters to Malcolm, back in 1959. Lewis is critiquing the modern tendency to reframe sin in psychological or sociological terms, thereby diminishing the traditional moral and spiritual understanding of human wrongdoing. Think about that. We'll try to bring you a quote of the day related to legal issues, and maybe it'll make you think. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we talk about sometimes on here, is that it's never anybody's fault, right? Sin nowadays has made not only ugly, but passé. People are no longer sinful. They are only immature or underprivileged or frightened or more particularly sick. Think about that. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's go to Lockhart, Texas, specifically in Lakeway. A Lockhart, Texas man was arrested in Lakeway, Texas after attempting to steal a police car. That's right. The Lakeway police arrested Dakota Kennedy. A series of events that began with a stolen vehicle investigation, culminating in an audacious attempt to steal an unmarked police car. The incident began when Lakeway police received a license plate reader alert for a vehicle that was reportedly stolen. Officers located the vehicle, parked and unoccupied, and then to apprehend the driver, police deployed an unmarked surveillance on the stolen car. Now, during the operation, officers observed a man later identified as Dakota Kennedy exiting a nearby residence, and instead of approaching the stolen vehicle, Kennedy allegedly walked to the unmarked police vehicle, opened the door, and appeared an attempt to steal it. Upon realizing what was taking place, officers were inside. Kennedy fled on foot, but was quickly apprehended. Following his arrest, police found drugs and a key to the ignition to the stolen vehicle in Kennedy's possession. He now faces multiple charges, including unauthorized use of a vehicle, engaging in organized criminal activity, possession of a controlled substance, and evading arrest. Now, the Lakeway Police Department has not released additional details about the incident of Kennedy's motives. The investigation remains ongoing as authorities determine whether other individuals are connected to the case. Anyway, the police also say, hey, let's remind everybody to report suspicious activity promptly to assist police in maintaining community safety. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Today's show for May 14th. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.